The luggage made the car feel too small. "Mom, Dad, are you feeling hot?" I asked. "Yes. It's tough going home in such a tight space," Dad replied. "Catherine, do you understand what we're saying?" he suddenly asked. I felt nervous. What do you mean? You don't get it? You should be thankful for the chance to walk home for 5 hours. It's good exercise. You should appreciate this great opportunity." That was the last straw for me. Fine. I'll get out of the car. Walking is easy. In fact, I can already see our house. When I saw them laugh at my words, I made up my mind. I was going to get back at them for everything I had put up with. My name is Catherine Ryan. I'm 28 years old and have been married for 6 months. I met my husband, Scott, in a university hiking club. We both love outdoor activities and often take weekend trips. Scott was always the leader of the club, full of energy and making decisions for the group. When we started dating, he naturally took charge of our relationship too. "I want to eat Italian food this weekend. It's been a while," I suggested once. "That won't work. We're going hiking," Scott replied. "Catherine, pack lunch for 2. "It's difficult when you suddenly ask me to make a packed lunch," I said. "Are you really arguing with me?" he asked, as if it wasn't even a question. Scott always decided our plans, and his word was final. I wasn't the type to argue, so I found it easier to just go along with what he wanted. But looking back, I realized this only made him more selfish. I decided to marry Scott because, even though he could be self-centered, he seemed dependable. But when we got serious about marriage, he suddenly said something unexpected. "Catherine, you'll quit your job after we get married, right?" "But I really love my job," I said. "Why is a woman arguing? Your job is just for fun. It's not as important as mine. You should take care of the house and support my career instead." To Scott, my job didn't matter. Only his work and his lifestyle were important. And once again, his decision was final. I thought about it for a while, but as time passed, I finally decided to quit my job and become a housewife. Still, I couldn't understand why Scott wanted me to only focus on the house when balancing both work and home would have been easier. His real reason became clear after our marriage was confirmed. When we visited his parents to announce our engagement, I realized the truth. "Mom, this is my future wife, Catherine. She's going to quit her job and take care of the house," Scott said. His mother responded, "Oh, really? I hope she won't rely too much on your money." Scott laughed. "She's not very capable, but please accept our marriage." Even though Scott was the one who told me to become a housewife, his words were harsh. He thought being a responsible husband meant making me financially dependent on him. I was just a way for him to boost his own image, especially in front of his mother. It was humiliating to be spoken about like that in front of others, including his mother. But if I said anything, Scott would get angry, so I stayed silent. "Couldn't you marry a more attractive woman?" his mother asked. "Catherine is simple and plain-looking. She doesn't even work, so she has no special skills. It's like taking care of a child who looks like an adult. You're really kind to marry a woman like her." She seemed happy with the situation. To her, Scott was a strong and dependable man who was taking care of me. Scott often called me wasteful and liked to brag about being the head of the family. Still, I loved him, so I put up with his behavior. I believed it was my responsibility to take care of him. The harder it got, the more I tried to prove my dedication. Over time, he even stopped doing simple things like putting his clothes in the laundry basket. Since he had grown up in his parents' home without learning any chores, he didn't know how to do anything on his own, not even make a simple meal. But instead of feeling embarrassed, Scott was proud of this. He acted like earning money made him more important, and I had to follow his lead. He thought everything should go his way. Even when we were stuck in traffic, he blamed me. "I can't even tell if we're driving or just sitting here. Why did you pick such a busy road?" he complained. "I'm sorry. I should have checked the route better," I said automatically. Without realizing it, I had developed a habit of apologizing for things that weren't even my fault. 6 months into our marriage, summer arrived, and the heat became unbearable. "Catherine, let's go somewhere cool for our next break." "I've already booked it," Scott suddenly announced. I was shocked. "A reservation? What about my schedule?" I asked. What about my plans? Scott frowned. Don't argue. A housewife like you doesn't have plans. Just like that, the trip was decided without my input. But at the end of the month, when I checked the credit card bill, it was much higher than usual. Scott, this bill looks strange.
Could there be a mistake?
Should I call the card company? I asked. No, it's correct. It's for 6 people, he replied. I was confused. 6 people? Why? Obviously, my parents and sisters are coming too. We can't just have fun by ourselves. It's nice to use money to take care of family. I wouldn't want you to seem like a selfish person who refuses to spend on them, he said casually. Since you don't usually do anything, let's make this trip meaningful. Taking care of family was important, but I was upset that he had spent so much without even asking me. Worse, he made it seem like I should be grateful. Why did you decide something this big without talking to me first? I asked. You're not good at making decisions, so I plan everything, Scott said confidently. If you have a problem with my choices, go ahead and argue your point. He refused to back down. In the end, I had no choice but to use the money my parents gave me when we got married to cover the costs. I felt like I had no control anymore. Scott kept getting worse, acting like everything I owned, my money, my time, belonged to him. He constantly put me down, and I felt like I couldn't complain or talk to anyone about it. The day of the trip finally came. My in-laws provided a big car, and 6 of us headed to the summer retreat. This was only my 3rd time meeting Scott's family. At formal gatherings, I hadn't noticed much, but during this trip, I saw how my mother-in-law did everything for my father-in-law. He wouldn't even open a water bottle by himself. He just waited for her to do it. Worse, he never even thanked her. Scott's sister looked a little annoyed by this, but her husband was completely different. He helped with chores and always checked if she was tired. I found it surprising that men like him existed. Watching my mother-in-law, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Was this my future? She seemed happy to serve her husband, but she expected me, as her daughter-in-law, to do the same. She treated my father-in-law with care, but with me, she was strict. Catherine, how about that restaurant for dinner? She asked. I nodded. Yes, that sounds good. As if she had been waiting for this, she immediately said, Then you should make the reservation. I hesitated. You want me to make the reservation? I was surprised. Of course, you really don't notice anything, do you? It's normal for the new daughter-in-law to handle household tasks. You should have been the one to say, I'll make the reservation, my mother-in-law said. To her, a daughter-in-law was someone who had to follow her every request. Watching how much she cared for my father-in-law, I realized she expected me to do the same. Taking care of my in-laws was now added to my responsibilities, making things even harder for me. Like with Scott, there was constant, silent pressure, and I wasn't allowed to say no. The only person who supported me was my sister-in-law, Cynthia. She was older than Scott and very efficient in handling her tasks. This was the first time we really talked, but even before that, I had noticed how smart and logical she was in group discussions. Cynthia stepped in whenever my mother-in-law tried to push more work onto me. She understood how difficult it was to have an overbearing mother-in-law because she had experienced it in her own marriage. Scott, on the other hand, said nothing. He was too busy enjoying his time at the retreat. This cool breeze feels amazing. It might be nice to live in a place like this in the future, he said. My mother-in-law took a deep breath of the fresh air and nodded. Yes, it would be wonderful to retire here. But this area is expensive. It's just a dream for us. Taking full advantage of the trip, she excitedly visited tourist spots and souvenir shops. Scott, surprisingly, seemed to know his way around, even though this was supposed to be his first time here. He walked with confidence, taking us exactly where he wanted to go. His parents happily followed along without questioning his plans. Scott, have you been here before? I asked. No, this is my first time, he said. You seem to know a lot, like the best times to visit restaurants. Scott hesitated before answering. Well, the way he dodged the question made it clear he had done a lot of research beforehand. Maybe he had put effort into planning this trip for everyone. As I was lost in thought, my mother-in-law suddenly called out, Catherine, this is heavy. Help me, please. I turned to see her carrying several shopping bags, all filled with items she had bought. Did you really buy this much? I asked in surprise. Unlike you, she muttered, clearly expecting me to carry everything. I have many friends, and I need to buy souvenirs for a lot of people. Since I'm carrying so much, it's only natural for a daughter-in-law to help. I don't understand why you don't see that. Maybe it's because your parents didn't raise you properly, my mother-in-law said. Being blamed for my parents' supposed lack of good upbringing was upsetting. But my mother-in-law often said things like this. She was proud of how she had raised Scott and believed she had done a perfect job. Her attitude annoyed me, but I held back my anger and silently did as she asked. Cynthia, however, wasn't so patient. She frowned. Mom, how can you say such awful things, she said. Then she turned to me. Catherine, I'm sorry. I'll carry them with you. Just think of it as helping the elderly. The elderly? My mother-in-law snapped. Why would you say that about your own parents? I can't stay quiet when you act like this. If you don't want to hear it, then stop relying on us for everything, Cynthia shot back. I felt overwhelmed. Taking care of Scott was already stressful, but now I had to take care of my in-laws too. Still, with Cynthia's support and the excitement of being in a new place, I reminded myself why I had once fallen in love with Scott. Back when we were dating, his leadership had seemed dependable, especially in situations like this. By the time we were ready to go home, the car was completely packed, mostly with the things my mother-in-law had bought. She didn't just get souvenirs, she also stocked up on household items, saying, "Everything is so cheap here." The luggage made the car feel small and cramped. Mom, Dad, are you feeling hot? I asked. Yes, it's uncomfortable traveling back like this, Dad replied. Then, suddenly, Scott looked at me and said, Catherine, do you understand what we're trying to say? I was confused. What do you mean? You don't get it? You should walk home. It's only 5 hours.
What?
Walking home is impossible. Our house is far away, and you can't get there without using the highway, I protested. Normally, we would send the luggage by courier, but my in-laws hesitated. They didn't want to spend money on shipping. Using a courier is a waste of money, don't you think? It defeats the whole purpose of coming by car, my mother-in-law said. Besides, making you walk is free. It's good for your health. You should be thankful for such an opportunity. Most of the time, I was told not to argue back. But this time, I couldn't help myself. When I objected, Scott and his mother frowned. What do you think is more important, your body or all these souvenirs? Scott asked. You love hiking, so walking should be easy for you. It's a great chance to enjoy nature on the way back. That was it. I had reached my breaking point. I had put up with so much, but there were limits. It seemed like Scott and his mother didn't understand boundaries. They thought they could say anything to me without consequences. All right then, I'll get out of the car. Walking is easy for me. In fact, I can already see my house, I said calmly. Scott and his mother burst into laughter. What are you talking about? You're not making any sense. Have you lost your mind? His mother scoffed. I smiled and replied, Actually, there's a private resort community nearby, and one of the villas there belongs to me. I'll be there soon, so I don't need to go back to our house. I'm perfectly happy staying here. My butler will be arriving shortly to pick me up. Scott and his mother looked stunned. What I said was completely true. My father owned a business, and our family was financially comfortable. Recently, my parents had bought a vacation home in this area, planning to live here in the future. This place was popular among people moving away from the city. My parents had given me permission to use the villa as long as I took care of it during the off-season. I never told Scott about this, but just before leaving for this trip, I had shared everything with my parents. They were shocked and furious. They assured me they would support me fully, no matter what I decided. After thinking it over, I made up my mind I was going to move into the vacation home. I looked at Scott and said, I feel like I've grown stronger because of you. So, thank you. You gave me so many orders and acted so selfishly, but maybe I was never the right wife for you. Perhaps you'd be happier with someone you truly love. Scott's mother's face darkened. What do you mean by someone you love? She asked suspiciously. The truth was, I had been secretly looking into Scott's actions for a while. I had suspected he was cheating soon after our marriage. Scott started taking frequent business trips, but something felt off. The locations he mentioned didn't match his company's usual destinations. I decided to check. When I called his workplace, I found out that these trips never actually existed. In reality, Scott was visiting a woman who lived in this area, pretending it was for work. Not long ago, I even found a receipt from a store in this town in his pocket. That's when I discovered the woman's name, Shirley. She went to the same school as us, didn't she, Scott? Scott's face turned pale. He looked completely shocked. He must have thought he had everything under control. But he was wrong. His plan was too simple, and he never realized I had been paying attention all along. I had always taken care of all the household chores and knew every detail of my husband's daily life. You knew about this too? How did I not realize you were aware? Scott asked, shocked. It was Cynthia, who couldn't stay silent anymore. She found his actions unforgivable and scolded him harshly. Scott, what is this? Cheating is not acceptable, she said angrily. Even his mother, who usually took his side, looked at him with a serious expression this time. I found out that Scott was spending time with this woman in his free time. They went shopping together and had tea in this neighborhood, I said. Here are the photos as proof. I had secretly followed Scott, using my limited free time to gather evidence. If my suspicions were right, he would have left behind clues. His mother also looked at the photos on my phone. Once she saw them, any doubts, she had disappeared. Scott, explain yourself, she demanded. Under pressure from Cynthia's anger and his mother's stern look, Scott had no choice but to confess. He tried to stay calm as he spoke. All right, I'll tell the truth. Just before our marriage, I found out through social media that an old classmate of mine lives in this area. She moved here for work. Back in school, I secretly liked her. When we started talking again, we got closer and closer, he admitted. He paused for a moment. Everyone held their breath, waiting for what he would say next. But his next words were completely unexpected. But we're not in a relationship yet. We're just at a stage where we're very close to crossing that line. It's because this moment is so important that I've been coming here so often, he continued. I've already decided that I want to start a new life with her as my girlfriend in the future. His confession made my discomfort even worse. Scott wasn't just fooling around. He was seriously trying to win Shirley over. And worst of all, he had been seeing her even before our marriage. What did that make our time together? His parents were too stunned to speak for a while. Finally, his mother asked, What are you saying? What was your marriage with Catherine then? Scott let out a deep sigh. I made a mistake in my judgment. If I had met Shirley first, I would have married her instead. My relationship with Catherine just happened by chance, and that led to our marriage. I tell myself I was just unlucky. So that was it. Our marriage had never been what he truly wanted. Scott had been treating me harshly on purpose, hoping I would be the one to ask for a divorce. That explained why he had become more and more selfish after we got married. Everything he had done was just his immature way of trying to escape. He had never thought about my feelings, not even once. I couldn't accept being treated with such disrespect. At this point, I felt nothing for Scott. Even if his relationship with Shirley wasn't serious, the fact remained, he had lied and secretly met another woman. His selfishness had gone too far. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared in advance. They were ready to be submitted as soon as he signed.
Scott, sign this.
You won't regret getting a divorce, will you? I asked. Yeah, this might actually be a good thing. It'll clear everything up, and I'll be free to date Shirley, he said, signing the papers quickly, as if it was no big deal. Watching him, I secretly felt relieved. I carefully put the documents in my bag, then looked at him and said, Actually, Scott, I found Shirley's posts on social media and contacted her. His expression changed slightly. When I told her we were married, she was shocked. Shirley is actually a close friend of mine. At first, I was worried she might be stealing my husband, but it turns out she already has someone else. She's not interested in you at all. Scott's face froze. To prove it, Shirley even admitted that you had been visiting her, pretending it was for something else. But she never saw you as anything more than a friend. I smiled slightly before delivering the final blow. She's getting married this fall. Scott's face turned pale, so pale that even the people around us could see something was wrong. You're lying. You're just trying to trick me, he stammered.
No, Scott.
No matter what you say, the truth won't change. I held up my phone and showed him a message from Shirley. It clearly said that she only saw Scott as a good friend. Scott stared at the screen in shock, his hands trembling. Oh, and just so you know, don't even think about trying to come back to me. I don't marry just to fill an empty space in my life. From now on, you'll have to stand on your own, I told him firmly. Scott had seen Shirley as his emotional support, but now that was gone. He looked completely lost. With our connection severed, he had nothing left. Honestly, it was probably for the best. Shirley would never want to take care of a man who couldn't even do basic household chores. She would surely build a life with someone far better than him. I might have been too soft on you, but in the end, you failed as a husband, I said. Scott muttered to himself, his voice weak. How did it end up like this? Was the last 6 months completely meaningless? I gave him a knowing look.
Yes.
You were just fooling yourself over a kind classmate. Or maybe you willingly played along with the lie. I paid the price for the miserable 6 months you put me through, I said firmly. It's foolish to throw away your family over something so meaningless. Scott grabbed my arm, silently begging me not to leave. Cynthia immediately stepped in. Stop depending on others. Throughout this whole trip, I've been so annoyed by you and your mother. You both acted like Catherine was supposed to do everything for you. Who do you think you are? No one acts like that anymore. All the freedom you've enjoyed until now is finally catching up with you. The car was in complete chaos. Scott's usually quiet father and brother-in-law just sat there, watching everything unfold without saying a word. From the way you've behaved on this trip, I can only imagine how awful everyday life must be with you, Cynthia continued. I couldn't stand it even for a single day. The old ways of thinking, that men or mothers-in-law are more important, don't work anymore. I wish you'd stop treating this like a joke. Suddenly, Scott let out a laugh. Catherine, no matter how tough you act, it's pointless. Even if you hate it, you can't survive on your own.
You don't have a job.
You have no choice but to depend on me. I made sure of that, he said smugly. His attitude made it clear. He still thought he had control over me. Even if we divorce, your options will be limited. So just accept reality, destroy the divorce papers, and go back to your role of taking care of the house, he ordered. Finally, his true feelings came out. To him, I was nothing more than a housemaid. Looking back, even when we were dating, maybe his kindness was only on the surface. In reality, he had just been looking for someone who would take care of everything for him. I was so shocked by his words that I laughed. What are you even talking about? I make more money than you, I said. Scott rolled his eyes and laughed even louder. Stop joking. What can a housewife who stays home all day possibly do? Don't insult real working people. How will you, someone who knows nothing about the real world, make money? I raised an eyebrow. Who's really out of touch here? You can't even take care of yourself. And you have the nerve to lecture me? You've been skipping work to meet women, and yet you think you have everything under control? I pulled out my phone and held it up for him to see. Look at this, I said. On the screen was my net banking app. A recent deposit of $1,000 had just come in during our 2-day trip, along with notifications of several other deposits from the past few days. After Scott made me quit my job, I had started selling my handmade crafts as a hobby. Scott's face went pale. He looked completely stunned, as if he had never considered this possibility. That wasn't surprising. I had never told him about it. In fact, early in our marriage, when he saw some of my craft supplies, he had scolded me, asking why I was wasting time on something so silly. He had no idea what I was truly capable of. I started selling my crafts as a small side job to help with household expenses. But after seeing how Scott reacted, I decided to keep it a secret. Actually, my recent pieces have been selling really well and at high prices. I sell them every day, and I'm seriously thinking about starting my own business. To be honest, divorcing you is a win for me. I can focus on growing my business and won't have to waste time taking care of you, I said. Scott looked completely shocked. He mumbled, "Starting a business?" and stood frozen. I knew that running a business would take a lot of effort, but now that I was confident in earning my own money, I was ready for the challenge. Unlike you, who just wastes time at work, I'm going to build my own future, I added. Cynthia nodded in agreement. Scott slumped his shoulders in defeat. I feel like the time I spent being controlled by you was a complete waste, I continued. From now on, live your life however you want. You're not good at facing reality, so I won't bother with you anymore. Just don't ever interfere in my life again. Cynthia agreed. That's a great idea. He's always relied on others while doing nothing himself. This time, let's make sure he actually learns how to take care of himself. I couldn't help but laugh. You're right. He may look like an adult, but inside, he's still a child. I'm tired of babysitting him. Maybe it's time he learns to live on his own. Then I turned to Scott and his mother. As I said earlier, I'll walk home. It's just 10 minutes away. With that, I stepped out of the car and shut the door behind me. Before walking away, I leaned down to the car window and added, "Oh, and by the way, your mother said she couldn't imagine living here. But I'm sorry to say that I'll be the one enjoying this beautiful place. If you want to live here too, good luck figuring it out." I smiled and waved as I walked away. Scott and his mother scowled, clearly frustrated. And that was it. I finalized the divorce, secured a small amount of savings from our marriage, and even received some compensation for everything I had endured. I used that money to officially start my own business. Cynthia and I stayed good friends even after the divorce. Later, she told me what happened in the car after I left. It was a total disaster, she said, laughing. Scott completely lost his confidence, and his mother was in shock when she heard about your business and your vacation home. Those two are hopeless. Even if Scott tries dating again, with his personality, marriage won't be easy for him. I couldn't help but smile. I was finally free, and my new life was just beginning. I could easily picture that situation. Even if Scott changed his selfish ways, his controlling mother would still be there, making life difficult. Any woman with common sense would run away. According to Cynthia, Scott had completely lost his confidence and was now too afraid to even talk to women. He was living alone, but it wasn't easy for him. He struggled with simple daily tasks. His father refused to help him, saying his selfish behavior had finally caught up with him. Cynthia found the whole thing amusing and said Scott would have a tough life from now on. She had also distanced herself from her mother, which had made her life much less stressful. Today, Cynthia visited my home. She looked around and smiled. "This is such a beautiful and stylish house, Catherine. It's wonderful. Thanks to you, I'm doing well, Cynthia." "Thank you for coming all this way," I replied. Cynthia smiled warmly and waved her hand. "It's no problem. Coming here is a nice break for me, and the weather is great. I was really looking forward to spending time with you. It feels like I've gained a new sister." Her kind words touched my heart. After everything I had been through, it was comforting to have someone like her in my life. It felt like we had formed a special bond. Free from toxic family ties, we were building a supportive friendship. "Hey, Cynthia, this is for you," I said, handing her a piece of jewelry I had designed just for her. Cynthia's eyes lit up as she took it. "Wow, this is beautiful. Did you make this yourself, Catherine? You're really talented." "I want to wear it right now," she said excitedly, putting it on immediately. Seeing her so happy made me feel just as joyful. Even though my marriage to Scott had been a mistake, meeting Cynthia had been a blessing. Not everything from that time had been meaningless. Now, in this peaceful neighborhood, I was ready to truly enjoy my life, on my own terms.